First Timothy 2:9 is probably one of the most misunderstood verses in the Bible. To some people, it implies that women can't have braided hair, and to others, it also implies they can't wear gold, pearls, or costly clothing. And the problem, of course, with the braided hair argument is that that was the standard hairstyle in the ancient world. Women would braid their hair, then pull it back tight against their head. So what on earth is going on in 1 Timothy 2:9? The problem is actually in the conjunctions, and in a text critical note, we see even some of the scribes struggled with this. It's likewise also women, and then you go down here, clothe themselves in modest attire with modesty and self-control, decency, however you want to translate them. Not, in other words, here's how they're not to adorn themselves, not in braided hair and gold or pearls or in costly attire. This is a very interesting variant right here. You can see that some manuscripts replace the chi with the a with the or, not in braided hair or gold or pearls. I'm glad that's not what the original text was. The original text is the chi. If you look at the phrasing, you can see why this is important. They are to clothe themselves, not in or with braided hair and gold or pearls. And then I wish Paul had done chi here, but he didn't, or costly attire. There are two, not four, prohibitions here. The prohibition is not to wear braided hair that's impregnated with gold or pearls, and they're not to clothe themselves in extremely expensive clothing. You can see the problem in the King James and some of the other translations too. It says not with braided, I'm assuming that's an old spelling for it, comma, or gold, comma, or pearls, comma, or costly attire, a costly array. And what happens is they translated this chi as or, and that broke the grouping here. And the ESV has it right, braided hair and the idea is braided hair with either gold or pearls. It's interesting to look at the other translations. The ESV and most of them say not with braided hair and gold or pearls or costly attire, which is a good and a safe translation. The NRSV, and I don't understand why they did this, with braided hair, comma, or gold, comma, pearls, dropping out the conjunction, comma, or expensive clothing. The NRSV has continued the tradition from the King James that there's four prohibitions. And even in the CSB, not with elaborate hairstyles. And again, I looked, and the word means braided hair. It doesn't mean elaborate hairstyles as far as I can tell. But they did the same thing. They turned it into four prohibitions. Now, like I said, my case would be stronger if Paul had written chi there instead of a. But the grouping, I think, makes really good sense. And to go back to the phrasing, you have N, which controls the case of the braided hair. Then the gold pearls is going to agree with the word they modify. And then expensive clothing is also dative, going back to N. But like I said, the standard way that women wore their hair was braided, pulled back against their head. All you have to do is look at statues of the time and you can see it all over the place. And I guess you really need to put in the qualifier that this is not just what Paul is concerned about, is their hair and their clothes, that he wants them to place a priority on who they are as Christians. In other words, they are to clothe themselves with good works, which technically, of course, good works isn't clothing, but that makes the point. It's a matter of emphasis. It's a matter of priorities. But at a minimum, this chi should be translated as and. And I just think contextually you can understand that this or is the second of the two prohibitions. It seems that some of the wealthy always find a way to set themselves apart. I mean, they're probably going to have nicer cars and nicer houses, and that's fine. But when they come into church, we are all one in Christ. We are a unit. We are a unity. And you need to dress the part to understand that what's more important to you are who you are in Christ, your attitudes, and how that shows itself in appropriate clothing. What we shouldn't be doing is coming into church, strutting around, trying to show that we're better than others simply because of the shoes we wear or the purses that we carry or, whatever be the case. If the church did this, if a church took seriously the command to not establish a social caste system in the church by what we wear, men and women alike, it would be much easier to follow James's instruction and not have favorites, not to play favorites among the rich. Because if none of us really knew what we were worth financially, it'd be easy to follow James's instructions in chapter 2. So please, when you look at how you dress and what you wear, how you conduct yourselves in the church, understand that the foot of the cross is level. We are all level before Christ, and we are to live as a single body, knit together in love. And if we're trying to establish that I'm better than you and I'm going to show it by what I wear, then it just really defeats the whole purpose.